Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Profitable Mindset Podcast.
Welcome to the Profitable Mindset, a show dedicated to teaching you the skills you need to build a profitable product-based business that makes you feel free and fully in control. Here is your host, Charlotte Smith.
Hey, you guys, welcome to episode number 42. Part 7 of my summer business building series. And today I'm talking about how to choose a business model to help you make money. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because so many farmers that I work with avoid business plans and business models because, let's face it, it sounds boring compared to everything else we got going on. Plus, they can look complicated and really daunting, and even just a quick Google search on business plans can be overwhelming. And usually we start our businesses because we love the land and the animals, and we want to share the bounty, and we want to make some money. And the numbers, diving into numbers and business plans is just not attractive to a lot of us. And to some people, just getting into business and wanting to make a little money is the extent of their business planning. You know, maybe they're just hoping to replace their day job income or add a little money to the family budget each month. But by just hoping you'll make money, if that's you, if you started your business hoping you'll make money and you aren't actually planning for it in the way I'm talking about today, you won't ever get there. So I have a very simple business plan that I suggest so that you can get something in place besides hope, because hoping you make a profit or hoping you make sales won't sustain you. And I know my business plans are simple, especially if you are someone who has an accounting background or a business background. But what I find from working with thousands and thousands of people now over the years is when it's easy and simple like this, then you're more likely to do it. What happens is most business owners avoid the complex business planning or the business plans that they find online or that organizations are telling them they need to fill out. They're avoiding doing them. So I also have so much evidence that with the clients I work with and the marketing students I've had over the years, that a very simple plan could take you really far. So that's what I got for you today. What's going to happen is then you have a target to work toward to finally make a profit. If you don't have a business plan, you leave things up to chance until you go out of business. And remember, I say this in a lot of episodes, and I'll keep reminding you of it. There's an 80% chance that you'll be out of business in the first couple years, and a 98% chance that your business will not last past the 5-year mark. Now, maybe there's people who've been limping along for 10 years, but they're pumping money into it from their day job. So that dream of quitting their day job and living off their farm income never happens, and they end up overwhelmed and exhausted for years and years and years. Okay, so I don't consider that a sustainable business when you have to pump money into it from somewhere else. So let's get you guys profitable. Let's get you staying in business so you can keep providing for your family and also the communities that you've committed to. And in order for you to stay in business, it has to be sustainable. You can't be wearing yourself out working 18-hour days trying to manage everything, exhausting yourself, making yourself sick, never seeing your family, sacrificing time with your kids. So you've got to learn to do it sustainably. And today, I'm focusing on just the business model part of it. Now, when I talk models, what I mean is, how are you going to make the money? What I'm talking about is, what is your plan to make money? You've got to have a model. The problem I've run into with most of the farmers when they first come to me, or the clients that I'm coaching with when they first come to me for help, is many of you have mixed way too many models, and this won't work. Focus on one model is what makes the money. So you're going to learn to constrain yourself and focus on one model. Now, this might be shocking to you to hear, But I want you to know that when you constrain yourself to one business model, and what I mean by one business model are things like, are you selling wholesale or retail? And are you selling by the half and quarter beef and the half hog? Or do you sell by all the different cuts? Or are you selling subscription boxes of meat? Those are 3 different models right there just on meat. So in order to be successful, you've got to focus on just one until you get really profitable and sustainable on that one before you expand to the second one. All right, maybe you are a flower farmer. So do you sell by the flower bouquet, retail? Or do you sell flowers wholesale to florists for weddings? Or do you do some weddings yourself plus some wholesale? Or maybe that, and you have a cutting garden and you sell bouquets. Again, that's, 4 different business models. You'll be struggling if that's what you're doing. If that's your plan to do all those different business models, it's going to be super difficult and may do you in. And many farmers make the mistake of coming into farming their first few years, wondering why they're struggling so much and exhausted and overwhelmed. And it's often because they've got way too many business models going on because they thought that, well, maybe the more models I have, the more ways people can buy my flowers, my vegetables, my meat, or my milk, then the more successful I will become. But I want to tell you, it doesn't work that way. What happens is you dilute your ability to focus on any one model and get that model successful when you work in all the different models. So you've scattered yourself way too much. Again, you got to get really good and strong, sustainable, and profitable with 50% margins at one business model before you expand to the second one. Because if you're not profitable selling retail, many of you mistakenly think, well, I'm not making the money selling retail, so I'm going to expand to wholesale. Well, what happens is you haven't developed the skill of marketing and selling yet. You think the business model is the problem, but that's not the problem. You can make a successful business with one business model. There is no perfect business model. There's just the one that you choose and decide that's the way you're going to sell and make money. And the challenge is you've also got to have developed the other skills too, like marketing and selling and managing your mind around overwhelm and guilt and constraint and decision-making. But again, most people think, oh, it's just I haven't found the right model. So they keep adding models. You know, they hear of, oh, we aren't making money selling beef by the cut, so let's add a beef CSA or a meat CSA. Or they add different types of meat, or they start adding dairy to their CSA. But until you get profitable at the first one, that's not going to work. I know this can seem contrary to what you might think when you first got started. Most people think, oh, I have to offer all the different models so that I can make more sales. But in business, what you'll learn is when you focus, when you constrain yourself to one business model, that focus and constraint is the way to get incredibly successful and profitable. If you go after all the models, you're going to wear yourself out and you're not going to get skilled enough at any of it. And so let's dive into some models by starting with, do you remember back in episode 39 where I took you through making your 10-year plan? Okay, hopefully you did that. You figured out what is your financial goal for 10 years. Go back and listen after this one if you want to do that. Now, I'm working with several of my one-on-one clients, and for the 10-year goals, I'm working with people who have $1 million goals for that 10 years. I've got $5 million goals for one person, and I've got $250,000 goals for 10 years. So I'm working with people on all different sizes there. And then what I taught you in episode 39 is how to reverse engineer that 10-year goal. So you have an idea of what you'll be making this year or maybe for 2021. You reverse engineered it. You know what you're going to make in 1 year. Now you need to figure out your business model or how in the world are you going to make that money. All right, so I'm going to base it on making $100,000 in the year. And I'm going to pretend we work backwards from our 10-year plan and ended up with $100,000 this year. Because, well, it's a nice even number for the purposes of explaining it here on the podcast. But of course, that number can look totally different for you. You can have a $10,000 goal for the year, $1 million goal for the year, whatever it is. Maybe it's $5,000 profit for the year. But choose a number. So many people don't even choose a number. They'll say something like, well, I want to replace my day job income, or I just want it to pay for itself, or I just want to add a little bit to our family income this year. But guess what? If you don't pick a financial number, if you don't pick a number goal, you'll never get there. Years later, you'll still be wondering if you're making any money at all, or you'll realize I've never made money in my 5 years of business. Do you know how many people tell me that? Many times it's because they never set their goal to get there. All right, so let's start out with our $100,000 goal let's plan it for 2021. Then what I'm going to do is break that into 4 quarters, which simply is $25,000 per quarter. What I want you to start doing as an entrepreneur is to train your brain to think in years and quarters and then months. Some of you might even break it down into weeks. Why do you do this? It's going to help you start to be more business-minded so you can build up a profitable business. And it'll also help you start thinking like the CEO of your business. And it'll help you start separating yourself from your business so that you can make good business decisions. Get out of your head of making this all about you and make good business decisions that serve your business. Okay? So it's going to help you be a good leader and a good visionary. So your business needs you to serve it as the CEO. All right? You're going to learn when you start thinking this way to step into that role as the visionary, the leader, the CEO, whatever it is you want to call it, thinking about your business in terms of years and quarters and months, maybe even weeks. And it's going to help you be way more business-minded, which is how your business needs you to be thinking. Okay, think of it this way. This really helped me years ago. You are serving your business. And your business needs you to serve it. You can't let your business down, or you and your business won't be here doing business in a year or 2 or 5. So you're here to serve your business. And the way you think about it is everything. Everything you create in your business is because of how you're thinking. So think of it this way, that you're the CEO serving your business. You got to make decisions that serve your business. And I know a lot of you struggle with this, because several of my one-on-one clients who focus or who come to me for help are only focused on this moment at hand. And when I first start working with them, I'll say, well, what are you on track to make this year? What's your goal for the year? And they don't know that because they've always just focused on the moment. They've never really been taught how to even think like a CEO and have that big picture. Or maybe I'll ask something like, well, okay, I hear what you have today, but what's your dream for 5 years from now? And again, a lot of people have not stepped outside of the present moment to dream or to create a vision for 5 years from now. They've never paused to think about that. Well, again, if you don't have that vision, you're just going to go in circles. You don't have a clear path. So I'm going to start to encourage you to think that way. This podcast is going to help you do that. You're going to start to think in terms of 10-year visions, 5-year plans, 1-year plans, quarterly plans, and monthly plans. What happens is you see more momentum that way. And when you start to think of it that way, it flows. You can clearly see how the one step you do today leads you to the month, the quarter, the year, the 5-year, the 10-year. Or if you're at the year and you don't know what to do next, you can back it up to the quarter, the month, and you know exactly what to do next. Because it's not overwhelming for your brain when you think this way, when you think in small chunks. But if you're just living in the moment, leaving it up to chance, hoping to make enough sales this week or this month, that is super overwhelming. And you can't see the flow of it. You can't see the next step. So when you think in terms of the 10-year, 5-year, 1-year, quarterly, monthly plans, it just gives you such a clear pathway and you see that vision of the future. What happens is it also makes your present struggles easier because, like I talked about in episode 37, you're going to have all kinds of struggles in your day-to-day. That is a guaranteed. What makes it more manageable to go through those struggles with ease, because they're going to be there, is to have the larger vision and feel a connection to that big future plan. Now, it's one thing to have that 10-year plan, but if you don't see the step-by-step pathway that gets you to that vision, gets that vision fulfilled, that'll be a struggle. All right, so again, we created the 10-year plan, we worked backward, and we've now got our $100,000 goal for the year. And another thing I want to remind you of that I shared in episode 40 is remember, you decide how much money you make, not any outside force. Your customers don't decide how much money you make. The market doesn't decide how much money you make. The economy doesn't decide. Nothing outside of you decides. You decide how much money you make. You decide on that number. So make sure you're not just hoping to make money and hoping that people will spend what you need to make, but know that you've got to pick a number, and then I teach you how to create that amount of money. So it's your decision what your numbers are, what your financial goals are going to be. And if you don't set these goals, it's just going to be so hard to get anywhere because you don't know where you're going. And you'll find yourself working in circles and exhausting yourself. Okay, so we've got the $100,000. When you divide that into 4 quarters, $25,000 a quarter. Now, if you sell seasonally, if you don't sell 4 quarters of the year, you only sell 2 quarters of the year. Just adapt this to your situation. Don't think, oh, this podcast won't work for me. She's talking about 4 quarters. No, this totally works for you. I want you to adapt it. Just take the $100,000, and if you sell 6 months out of the year, whether it's flowers or vegetables or meat, chickens, or whatever it is you sell, then that $100,000 might look like $50,000 per 2 quarters if you have no income the rest of the month. So again, I'm giving you the big outline here, and you can totally pull out your calculator and adapt this for your situation. I even have a coaching client who sells beef once a year, and that's it. So that's $100,000. If that was her goal, it would be made in 1 quarter only, and maybe even in 1 month. So again, just adapt this to your situation. Now, if we take that $25,000 quarter goal and divide it by 3 months in the quarter, that's about $8,350 a month. So again, do the math. Might be double that. Do the math for you based on how you sell. For instance, do you sell by the cut of meat, or do you sell by the bouquet, or do you sell by the CSA subscription, or by the quarter beef or gallon of milk? However you sell, adapt this to you. If you're trying to make $100,000 per year in that month, remember we broke it down to $8,350 a month. Here's what that might look like. Maybe that's 10 beef quarters that retail for about $835. That's $8,350 a month. 10 beef quarters, 2.5 beef cows. It's a reachable goal. I teach you how to do that. Maybe you're doing 10 whole hogs or 20 half hogs that month. Or maybe that is 100 customers spending $83.50 on meat cuts. If you do USDA meat by the cut, if that's your sales model. So it's 100 customers in a month spending $83.50 each. Now, if you notice what I just did, all I'm doing here is I'm moving zeros, Are you selling $183.50 products a month? Or are you selling 10 products a month at $835 each. So just move the zeros. All right, let's keep going. Look at this. 100 people a month spending $83.50 is so attainable no matter what you're selling. I know this because I live this with my marketing students and my coaching clients. You figure out the number, and then you'll be able to create the plan to get there with all the tools I teach. That's 100% doable with focus. If you need to come and get coached on it so you can customize it, personalize it to you, create the confidence and the courage and all the skills you need to do it, then by all means, get yourself the skills to do this. Nobody's born with these skills. We've all had to learn it. So 100 people a month spending $83.50 each. That works for meat. That works for milk. That might work for vegetables. Could also look like this. It could be 200 people a month spending $40 on flowers. That's 50 people a week. So if I come every 2 weeks to your farm and I buy a $20 bouquet every 2 weeks, boom, you've created my $40 to get to your goal of $100,000 per year. And again, if you're only open 6 months a year, you can double that. You can double the number of customers, or maybe the price per customer, or price your products differently. Now, if you're at 100 people a week, maybe you do vegetables for 6 months. Maybe that's 100 people a week spending $40 each on vegetables every week. Again, so doable. And these 100 people a week might be the same people every week or every 2 weeks. Again, I teach you that skill in Farm Marketing from the Heart, the skill of bringing 90% or more of your customers back every single week. But what I want you to notice here is see how breaking it down like this makes it so much more attainable, whether that's 50 people a week spending $20 or $40 on flowers or vegetables, or 100 people a month spending $83.50 on their month's worth of meat. You can create these numbers with ease when you focus and constrain. Just remember, so many farmers, before I work with them one-on-one, are daunted by these kinds of numbers, and they're overwhelmed by the talk of business models. So many of them never dive into it. It's why I've simplified it here, because when you dive in and do it very simply, like I'm explaining here, you can see that even the average person like me, who's not an accountant by any means, can figure out a simple plan. But more importantly, what's important about the simple plan is it works with the way your brain is wired, so that your brain can see very small steps to get to that big goal. Many of us, what happens is when we set the big goal, like, I want to make $100,000 this year. I want to make $50,000 this year. Even I want to make $10,000 in my business. Our brains can't see the doable steps. This is where mindset coaching comes in. People come to me and they wonder why they can't reach their goals. They haven't created the goal in a way that works with their brain. So it seems overwhelming and you never quite get there. So ask yourself now, just ask yourself, do I have the ability to sell 10 people a month for $835 each? Or do I have the ability to sell to 100 people each month who spend $83.50 each? And you can keep breaking it down even further. Many of you want to make a living on your farms, but you're going about it the wrong way because you don't have these small pieces in place. These small steps are what constitutes a very clear path. And then if you work each little baby step, as you grow, what's going to happen is your numbers will get bigger each year. Your prices will increase each year. You'll bring on more customers each year. Your marketing will get better and better. You can hire your first employee and then more employees, and then you can start to scale. Remember, you can't scale unless you have employees. Without help, you can't scale when you're the only person working in the business. All right, so now that I've explained the different models, you get to decide what is your business model. Remember, it doesn't matter. You can reach any one of them. You get to choose. Just don't get too scattered. If you're selling meat by the cut and meat by the CSA and meat bundles and quarters and halves, which I see a lot of you doing all these things. What's happening is you're really diluting your marketing and you're lowering your overall odds of success. Or maybe you are a flower farmer. You're doing weddings. You're selling wholesale flowers to other florists to do weddings. You're selling bouquets at your roadside stand. Maybe you have a cutting garden. Maybe you have a subscription. Again, way too many models. You're diluting your marketing and you're lowering your odds of success. And I see this way too often. People who start out and mistakenly think that the way to make money is to offer all these different models, but you just got to choose one. Now, if you're one of those people who's already scattered yourself and you're not making money, you can totally scale back. It's not too late. Cut back on the business models. Stop doing the retail or stop doing the wholesale or stop doing the bouquets or stop doing the weddings. Cut back. If you're overwhelmed where you're at now and you're not making enough money to hire all the help you need, something's got to give, and I don't want it to be your health. So if you haven't done this kind of work yet, know that if you don't do it now, you'll continue to scramble. You can't scramble your way out of overwhelm. What I want to tell you too, to remind you of, because I said it already, is the more you constrain your options to one model, the more money you will make. And the easier sales will be, and the less overwhelmed you will be. Imagine running your business not being overwhelmed. There's a lot of you I hear are really incredibly overwhelmed. Do you know it doesn't have to be that way? This is one of the things that will help you finally get out from under overwhelm. Okay, so back on track here with the numbers. Remember, if you're seasonal, adjust your numbers. But we've got the $100,000 in a year or 6 months or 3 months, if that's you, adjust those numbers. So again, if you are a seasonal business selling 6 months, well, then that is, say, $4,000 a week for 6 months. So that could be 100 people spending $40 a week per person. See how breaking it down makes it more attainable to your brain? 100 people a week spending $40 a week for 6 months, and you've got your sustainable, profitable business if you've priced your products correctly. That is so exciting to me. Whether it's my farm or looking at, the clients I'm coaching and seeing that path laid out for them, it is just so exciting. And it will be so motivating for you to see those numbers broken down like this. What happens is your brain sees it as completely attainable. Hopefully you see it like this too. And just remember, our brains like things in small, manageable chunks like this. It's why you want to chunk it down. And if you're overwhelmed when you try to do your business planning, chances are you haven't broken it down yet into small enough chunks. So this is a start. Okay, now let me give you some more options, because once I started doing the math here, I really got on a roll. Let me show you what happened. Maybe you've just started farming and you're doing pastured chickens. Well, it could look like this. Our chickens average $40 each, so that would be 2,500 chickens at $40 each for $100,000 a year. Now, if you only sell them 6 months of the year when the weather is nice and they can be out on pasture, if you're just doing fresh chickens, it's 100 chickens a week for $40. That's your $4,000 a week, or whatever combo you choose to adapt. And you could make that your $100,000 goal for the year. Now, if it's your first year in business and you've only done 200 chickens or a few flower bouquets, that's okay. I'm not telling you you've got to have a $100,000 goal for the first year. You want to start out small because there's a huge learning curve in farming. You're going to kill a lot of animals and kill a lot of plants your first couple of years until you get things figured out. So maybe the $100,000 goal is your year 3 goal. Whenever that happens, remember, you get to choose what that number is for you. And I just chose the 100,000 because it divides so evenly, so easily. Now, one more way to think about it is, let's say your beef cows average $4,000 retail, and that's got a good solid profit margin in there for you. So that's 25 beef cattle a year. Again, break it down for you. Maybe you're a flower farmer selling bouquets. Could be 100 customers a week, $40 each, or whatever adds up to the 100,000 for you. Or maybe it's 12 weddings a year, $8,000 each. Play with these numbers, whatever your situation is. And like I said, after you've gotten really good at marketing one model and selling that one model and making a very solid profit because your prices are where they need to be, then you can add and combine models. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're going to add a model first and then raise your prices when you've got more than one model because you think that will bring more customers. It does not work that way. Make sure your pricing, your profit margins are in place first, and then you can add another model. Too many farmers get themselves into trouble combining models from the start because they decide to get into farming and they look around at what other very successful big name farmers are doing. Like think about Fleurette or Joel Salatin, and they think, oh, if I want to be successful, I've got to do what they're doing. I got to sell all these different ways to make money. I got to sell beef by the cut and beef by the whole and half and whole chickens. And I got to sell to restaurants and I got to sell vegetables and I got to do all the things. Because you look over at Polyface, you see that's what they're doing. They look successful, so you want to do the same thing. But you can't compare your first few years of farming to Joel Salatin's 40 years of farming and expect to do what he's doing at year 40 in your year 1 or even year 5 or even year 10. This is a huge mistake. I have a lot of clients come to me and say, we're in over our heads. We want to do the Polyface farming model and we can't figure it out. It's because they took on what he's doing after 40 years and tried to do that their first couple years. Okay, so all these big name people that look really successful started with one product. So choose your product, choose your one model, get really good at it, make sure you've got your profit margin built in and it's really solid. Make sure you've done the mental work I offer through mindset coaching so you can charge without feeling guilty about your price or you could just stop feeling guilty about all the things you guys are telling me you feel guilty about. Those working through those mindset challenges you're going to have, that's as important as doing the numbers I've talked about here. Just remember, too many farmers get into trouble never getting to profit because they've combined all these business models from the start and they get in way too deep. Trying to do too many different things makes it really difficult to make enough sales with any of it at all. Plus, they're exhausted and overwhelmed. So choose one model, start with that, adapt everything I've talked about here to what you sell and how you sell. And remember, it's not too late to cut back if you've gotten in over your head selling in too many different models, okay? If you've got too many different products going and too many different ways of selling the products you've got going, if that's you, just know that you can backtrack and refocus. Get really good at one model. And by good, I mean make sure you're selling out at a profit before you add another model. So make your plan, decide on your model, and let me know. I can't wait to hear from you. You guys can always come to, I've got my Profitable Mindset for Busy Women Facebook group. I would love for you to come in there and talk about your business model and get some help. If you're in over your head and you need to scale back, you can talk about that. Or if you've had success at one thing, let us know too. I'm going to have a workshop on this next week. You'll get an email about that right inside the Profitable Mindset for Busy Women Facebook group. So I want to see you there. We can work through this together and figure out what the best model for you might be. Also, if you want coaching that transforms your life, your business, your family's life, finally be able to reach your goals or even create the goals that are best for you, solve your overwhelm, you can book a free strategy session to see if you're right for my program. That is at 3cowmarketing.com/strategy. Maybe I'll see you there. All right, take care, you guys. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. For more great resources, check out theprofitablemindset.com. See you next time.